237 was a pretty bad night for the Brazilian fighters, but it ended with a bang. More accurately, a freaking pile driver. What's up, folks? Fred Richani, TSC, your home for sports news updates, interviews, and everything in between. If you're new here, we'd appreciate you subscribing. I'm here to recap UFC 237 and Bellator 221, which both took place simultaneously. Bellator 221 on The Zone and from Hoffman Estates in Illinois. And, of course, UFC 237. Rose Namajunas in hostile territory, defending her strawweight title against Jessica Andrade in Brazil. Whew, let's get to the main event of UFC 237. This was crazy. Not a star-studded card by any stretch of the imagination outside of the title fight and Aldo and Anderson Silva. Although, keep in mind, Jose Aldo, while he's looked good his last couple of fights, and he's not the same Aldo he was of a few years ago. And Anderson Silva, well, he's 44, and unfortunately his career may very well be over. Or maybe fortunately. But let's start with the main event of this Rio de Janeiro card. Jessica Andrade knocked out Rose Namajunas in round number 2 with a slam. A literal version of the pile driver. Slammed this poor girl on her head, on her neck. For the love of God, I thought she could have been paralyzed. I mean, it was scary as hell. I saw one tweet where somebody said, I never want to see a replay of that again. I'm with you there. I don't ever want to see a replay of that again. But if you have to watch it once. Because it was insane. Slammed her on her head and neck. Pounded on her. And got the title win. But here's the crazy thing. Round number 1 was nuts. Rose and Jessica Andrade started out guns a-blazing with Rose getting the upper hand. I mean, if there was ever a decisive round for the champion, it was that. I mean, just popping that jab. Great head movement. Tagging Andrade. And look, to Andrade's credit, she kept coming back and forth, coming forward, doing her thing. Get jabbed, come right back. But she was getting tagged. Her eye was cut up. She tried to slam Rose before. Rose locked in also like a Kimura. Man, it was nuts. It was nuts. It was a frenetic pace, but it was clearly Rose Namajunas' round. I mean, she was dominating the whole fight. Even when Andrade tried to take her down, she almost got tapped out. She almost got finished. She got rocked. It was as good of a first round as you could ever have, other than maybe taking a guy or girl down and just laying on top of them, I guess, and damn near finishing them and bloodying them up. I mean, it was a hell of a round for Rose. She essentially won every single minute, every single second of that entire fight up until the point where she got slammed on her head and knocked the hell out. Just brutal. I can't even think of the last time we got a slam knockout in a title fight in UFC. You probably have to go back, way back, to Carlos Newton versus Matt Hughes, and Matt Hughes won his first world title. When Carlos Newton, I think, had him like a guillotine, and Matt Hughes just slammed him like a spine buster in the ground, won the title, and I believe famously, Matt Hughes, after he got the victory, he looked at his team and was like, "What happened? What happened?" He didn't even know. I mean, I think they both kind of were like, you know, what the hell? And then I think the other one probably would have been, almost 9 years ago now, which was Gerald Harris slamming, I believe it was David Branch. And that was one of the first like UFC fights, like highlights to make like the top 10 of SportsCenter. So yeah, this is a pretty damn rare finish. And look, take nothing away from Jessica Andrade, even though she lost most of that fight. She is a killer. There's a reason she was the number 1 contender. She's phenomenal. And Rose looked phenomenal before that slam. And I don't know what else to say other than I'd love to see them run it back. But there's a part of me that, I don't know, wants to hope that Rose is okay first. I mean, she was standing, she was walking around. She did say in the post-fight interview that she felt like a weight was off her shoulders. And I don't know, that's not what somebody, I don't know, should be saying. Or you want to hear somebody saying after they just lose the title, I feel like it's a weight off my shoulders. And ironically enough, I just read an article from Jeremy Botter of the Wizard newsletter. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, you probably should. It's really good stuff. And he talked about how Rose Namajunas has been struggling with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, since Conor McGregor threw that dolly on the bus. You may recall that Rose Namajunas was on that bus, and she was traumatized. And ever since then, while she's been fantastic at fighting and she's been training a lot, she hasn't really gone out of the house. She hasn't really hung out with a lot of people. And, I don't know if there's other triggers, maybe something happened in her previous life before MMA that remind her of something. And that's, I don't know. Maybe it's just PTSD from that Seoul incident. But that's crazy to think about. And I don't know. When I heard that, was really telling. And I could see UFC wanting to run that fight back. It was a great fight while it lasted. But you do hope physically and mentally that Rose is okay. But congratulations to Jessica Andrade. I mean, Jesus freaking Christmas. That was an unbelievable fight while it lasted. Just incredible. In the co-main event, damn, this is kind of sad. It's weird. On one hand, this was an entertaining card. It was also a very, very sad card. We had the end of maybe two legends in the sport. Hopefully, honestly, mercifully. Jared Cannoneer in the co-main event. Yeah, say that twice. Jared Cannoneer in a UFC co-main event defeated Anderson Silva via TKO via a vicious inside leg kick. He had been working on that leg for a little while throughout the fight. I don't know how many leg kicks he exactly hit, but hit one crucial shot to the knee of Anderson Silva. His knee buckled. He fell to the ground. That was it. And Anderson Silva loses the fight via TKO. I don't know if it was the same leg he broke against that fight with Chris Weidman, but Anderson Silva, knee injuries, nothing new, and it just was sad to see. He was able to stand up. He was just grimacing in pain. And then after the fight, Jared Cannoneer was going to do the interview, and he just let Brazil boo him. And boo him, and boo him. And I would have just kept talking over the boos, but he just he just waited for them to stop booing, and the boos got louder and louder and louder. I think he almost should have pulled a Roman Reigns after WrestleMania, where he just lets the crowd boo and walks out. That would have probably been better than his actual interview, where he said, Anderson's great, and if you guys don't respect me, I don't respect you. I mean, I guess he turned heel, so that's cool. I don't know if I want to see Jared Cannonier really fight again, but hey, it was an interview. But really sad to see. Anderson gave the props to Cannonier afterwards. And look, props to Cannonier. He did everything he could. It's just, he's Jared Cannonier. I don't know how much you want to see Jared Cannonier fight again, but hey, nice one on his record. But I don't know. I just think about the awkward booking of Silva. And outside of the Nick Diaz fight a few years back, outside of the Israel Adesanya fight we got a couple months back, the booking has just been kind of pathetic of Anderson Silva. And I really feel like UFC could learn a thing or two from the way they used to book some of these legends, or learn a thing or two from Pride or Bellator, because legends should be fighting other legends. And in the case of Anderson Silva, I mean, look, this freak accident could have happened. I don't even want to say it's a freak accident. I mean, look, Jared Cannonier did the damage, okay? But this reoccurring leg injury from a freak accident, okay, could have, look, it could have been re-injured in a fight with GSP. It could have been re-injured in a fight with somebody else, like Shogun or whoever, whatever. But I don't know. I just feel like there's a missed opportunity here. And look, maybe there's a good chance that George St. Pierre, at this stage of his career, at this stage of his life, being bigger and still being younger than Silva, would have wrecked Silva. But I just find it really disappointing that we never got GSP versus Silva. If you couldn't give GSP before he retired Habib, why not? And you couldn't give him Conor, why not give him Anderson Silva and just have that dream fight and let Silva ride off into the sunset, give these guys one last big payday? Yes, Silva was in the co-main event, but it was the co-main event of a pay-per-view that probably wasn't bought or watched by a whole lot of people. And when you factor in the deal that ESPN Plus is the only place you can watch pay-per-view in the U.S., UFC pay-per-view, I should say, cut whatever number that would have been on regular pay-per-view and maybe in half. So sad end. I think it's the end of Silva. I think it should be the end of Silva. And as featherweight champion Max Holloway would say, at the end of the day, it is what it is. We had Alexander Volkanovski defeat Jose Aldo via unanimous decision, 30-27 across the board. Not the most entertaining fight, but Volkanovski, he got a decisive win over the greatest featherweight of all time. I know people say Max Holloway and Conor McGregor's Conor beat Jose Aldo, but I mean, Aldo did it for over 10 years, successfully defended his title across two organizations, WEC and UFC. So I still consider him the GOAT featherweight. And sad to see. I would like to have seen Aldo get back in contention, but let's keep it real too. I mean, if he won, would he have really gotten a title shot against Holloway when he's lost him twice? I don't really think so. So here we have a new challenger, Volkanovski. He'll probably be taking on Max Holloway. Maybe in his native Australia in the fall when Whittaker is supposed to fight Israel Adesanya for the undisputed title. That would be one hell of a card, and let's hope the cards line up. We had Laureano Staropoli defeat Thiago Alves via unanimous decision. I had trouble keeping up with this fight just because this was actually taking place during the Patricio Pitbull, Michael Chandler Bellator 221 main event. So I was watching both, and my eye was kind of more on that one because that was a super fight. But Staropoli gets the unanimous decision win, so good for him. And Irene Aldana defeated Bethe Correia, via armbar round number 3. And it was not a good night for Brazilians outside of Andrade. Ryan Spann knocked out Antonio Rogero Nogueira in round number 1. Thiago Moises defeated Kurt Holubov unanimous decision. Warley Alves defeated Sergio Moraes via knockout, vicious punch in round number 3. And the really, really sad portion of the show, Clay Guida defeated BJ Penn via unanimous decision. Now, BJ Penn looked better by the lowest of low standards in 2019 for BJ Penn, but he still did not look good. He still did not belong in the cage, and I'm going to criticize UFC again here. Why was BJ Penn allowed in the octagon enough times to record his record 7th straight UFC loss? 7th. I believe the old record was like 5, and I think that was that was held by Joe Daddy Stevenson. 7 losses, and he didn't look good in either of them, in any of them. You know, say what you want about BJ Penn, and look, I don't condone whatever he's allegedly done in his personal life that's with his wife and family and all that stuff. I mean, those are some serious allegations there, but you don't want to see anybody go out that way. And the last thing a guy who's having personal issues, who's having physical issues, should be doing is fighting, and he did not look good at all. And good for Clay Guida, nice win on his record, I guess. But what does it really mean in 2019? At least this time around, they gave BJ Penn a guy who's also kind of like a former legend or a current legend in Clay Guida, who's a former contender, So this would have been, I mean, if you gave him Clay Guidas the whole time, like, I think it would have been fine. But the fact that, they gave him all these different dudes, like the Frankie Edgar fight especially, it's been brutal, man. It's been a brutal decade for BJ Penn since he lost to Frankie Edgar. It really has. And really, you can make the argument he's lost 8 straight fights because he had that draw with John Fitch in Australia several years ago, and I don't think that was a draw. I think John Fitch won that. So yeah, let's look since February 2011. Draw with John Fitch. Got demolished by Nick Diaz. Rory McDonald beat him handily. Frankie Edgar destroyed him. Yair Rodriguez destroyed him. Dennis Seaver beat him. Ryan Hall heel hooked him in round number 1, and then Clay Guida beats him. It's done. He's done. I don't even think Bellator should pick him up at this point. I mean, he's beyond damaged goods. And I just think, right now, without knowing everything that's going on, just based on what I've read and what we've all seen in the cage, out of the cage, he needs to take care of his personal life. He needs to retire. He needs to, maybe, move into coaching if he's not already coaching. And, I don't know what else to say other than it's really sad. From what I understand, I mean, he's still well off, or was anyway, when he first started in MMA. I don't think he needs the money. I hope he doesn't at this stage of his life. But what else can I say? It's pretty damn sad. So best wishes to BJ and Anderson Silva. Although I think Anderson's doing a lot better than BJ. All right, let's get to Bellator 221 before we get on out of here. This was from Hoffman Estates, Illinois, and this was a pretty damn good card from Bellator here. We had Patricio Freire, a.k.a. Patricio Pitbull, the current featherweight champion of Bellator, defeating the current, now former, Bellator lightweight champion Michael Chandler in a battle of maybe the 2 greatest Bellator fighters ever to win the Bellator lightweight championship. Patricio Pitbull now a Bellator lightweight and featherweight champion. Some people didn't like the stoppage. Patricio tagged him behind the ear, okay, right in the temple here, knocked him down, hit him with a few shots. Chandler wasn't defending himself. You know, I mean, it looked very clear. I mean, both guys were trading shots, but I mean, Patricio was really landing though, and Patricio's the better stand-up fighter. Hit him behind the ear, very similar to kind of when Cain Velasquez was knocked out against Junior Dos Santos. You know, it just messes up your equilibrium, and yeah, I'm saying that's not being an MMA fighter, but I've heard people say this. And went down, wasn't defending himself at all, was face down. When the referee stopped the fight, Michael Chandler woke up and was like, "Hey, I can continue," but he looked out. He definitely looked out. So, congratulations, Patricio Pitbull. I think undoubtedly the best Bellator fighter of all time. As far as anybody that's actually fought in Bellator for a prolonged period of time. You can make the argument that Michael Chandler is the second best now that he lost. Eddie Alvarez, also belongs in that conversation. But I think that title should go to Patricio Pitbull. Douglas Lima knocked the hell out of Michael Venom Page. He knocked Michael Venom Page down. If I recall correctly, I think it was a leg kick or a head kick. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't remember. But then, as Michael Page was on the ground and getting up, Douglas Lima just punched him in the face, knocked him out, mother freaking cold. I mean, it was just, it was brutal. Y'all should go seek out this knockout right here of Venom Page and Douglas Lima. It was brutal. Okay, I'm watching. Okay, leg kick, and then just like an uppercut. It was, oh my god, I gotta watch that again. Okay, leg kick, uppercut, hammer fists, and Michael Venom Page was out. I'm gonna watch it again. Leg kick, uppercut, hammer fists. Oh my god. Okay, this already has 120,000 views on Facebook. It's on our Facebook page if you haven't seen it. Douglas Lima advances in the welterweight tournament. Michael Venom Page gets his first defeat inside a MMA cage or ring. Brutal. And Douglas Lima reminds us why he is a former world champion and could be a soon-to-be, I think now, three-time Bellator welterweight champion. And he could win $1 million from 50 Cent. Hey, if I'm him, I'm taking that. He's fantastic. Okay, and yeah, two-time Bellator welterweight champion. He could be a three-time Bellator welterweight champion. We had AJ Mckee defeat two-time featherweight champion Pat Curran via unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-27, 30-26. Not the most exciting fight, but a great test for AJ Mckee. Hard to look good against Pat Curran, who's always been a tough fighter, but he gets a huge win here, and both guys could be seeing each other again in the upcoming featherweight tournament. We had Jake Hager, the former Jack Swagger, defeat TJ Jones, who looked like an overweight manager from GameStop. Nothing wrong with overweight managers from GameStop. I'm just saying. Via submission in the first round, arm triangle choke. This submission should have been called the dick move because Jack Swagger holds on the arm triangle as this big boy is tapping. Okay, and his meaty fist and meaty hands are definitely tapping on his back. He can definitely feel it. And he holds on to the choke for a good 3 to 5 seconds. And then he nonchalantly lets it go. Somehow he's not disqualified. And he said, "Oh, I thought it was the referee tapping me on the shoulder," and blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, if the referee's tapping you on the shoulder, you should be letting go. If the fighter's tapping on your shoulder, you should be letting go. And instead, it was just a dick move. He left the choke on for way too long. And he just shrugged it off. And look, he cut a great heel promo afterwards saying, I don't care if you guys boo me. I couldn't let that fat boy beat me, blah, blah, blah. And look, this is good for Bellator. He's a marketable guy. He's a good talker, former WWE superstar. He's got some name recognition. But that being said, man, this is real. And look, pro wrestling is amazing. I have the utmost respect for pro wrestling. And in pro wrestling, too, like MMA, when you step inside that ring or octagon or hexagon, whatever you're fighting in or wrestling in, you are putting your life on the line. You are absolutely putting your life on the line. But at least in pro wrestling, it's a somewhat controlled environment. This is obviously logical, right? MMA, it's not. Which means there's real potential with two guys trying to hurt each other where somebody could die. Somebody could get severely injured. And maybe he loosened up the choke after Jones tapped out. Maybe he slightly loosened it up and just wanted to show off or whatever. But you know what? there's better ways to do that, okay? There's easier ways to do that without damn near killing your opponent. You know what you could do? He could have let go of the choke, and he could have stepped on over him like Allen Iverson stepped on Tai Lu back in the day. You could have done that. And that would have been way safer than choking out a guy unconscious in a real fight. Never mind the fact that Jack Swagger's the same guy, and I like Jack Swagger, but he's the same guy that was known to be a little reckless in the ring as well when he was a wrestler. If I recall correctly, around this time 6 years ago, he kicked Dolph Ziggler in the freaking head, gave him a concussion, and doomed his world title run. And in that same year, 2013, he also, before a WrestleMania main event, got caught with weed. I'm not trying to pile on Jack Swagger here. I'm not trying to hate on him here. But, you know, sometimes a guy who seems like to be an intelligent guy can be a little unintelligent and a little reckless. And this was ridiculously reckless, and Bellator's lucky that he didn't get disqualified. And they're lucky that TJ Jones was okay. And they're lucky he'll get to see another day as an undefeated fighter. But I'm sorry, man. You can't pull that shit. And another thing. Well, it was kind of funny to see his opponent, who's this big, overweight white guy dancing Old Town Road on the way to a ring. I mean, this was just a joke. I mean, at least the first opponent Jack Swagger had looked like one of the toughest managers of a Carl's Jr. franchise. This guy just didn't even look like an athlete, like, at all. I'm sure he was, or is, whatever. But it was just, man, I'm sorry, I don't know. And look, I like MMA when it's kind of fun and it's kind of wacky, especially Japanese MMA and everything. But I don't know. This was a little too wacky for me. And then they kept saying, "Oh, CM Punk, it was as tough and blah blah." Look, CM Punk was a horrible MMA fighter. If he continues to fight again, he'll remain a horrible MMA fighter. Okay, he's not a great athlete, but you know what? CM Punk at least had some respect for his opponents, and you didn't see CM Punk shitting on his opponents like that. So, yeah, I was not a fan of this. And hey, but congrats to Swagger. He's very marketable. I'm happy for his success, but it's not that hard to not be a dick. Look, you can be a dick on the mic. Don't be a dick, when it comes to your opponent's safety. And Taiwan Claxton defeated James Bennett in the third round, via TKO. So overall, a hell of a night for mixed martial arts. I mean, really good stuff overall. And we got some news here, folks, because we got Nate Diaz coming back in August to take on Anthony Showtime Pettis at 170 pounds. But let's look ahead, because UFC announced its second half schedule, and it's an insane amount of fights. So next weekend, we have my sister's birthday weekend. Happy birthday, Vita. We have Rafael dos Anjos versus Kevin Lee on ESPN Plus Fight Night. Neil Magny versus Vicente Luque. And a bunch of other fights I don't really care about, other than Charles Oliveira versus Nick Lentz, which I don't know why they're running that back again. And Megan Anderson against Felicia Spencer. Okay, that could be good. But a lot of random fights here, too. Patrick Cummins against Ed Herman. I didn't even know Ed Herman was still fighting. So, there you go. After that, we take a 2-week break, and then we go to June 1st, and it's Alexander Gustafsson against Anthony Smith, who's been talking more shit about Luke Rockhold than his actual opponent, and Volkan Ozdemir against Ira Latifi. And actually, I think those should be two awesome fights. And we also have Tanya Evinger against Lena Landsberg. I think actually those three could be some really good fights. After that, UFC 238. So the next numbered UFC, the next pay-per-view is less than a month away, June 8th. It's headlined by Henry Cejudo taking on Marlon Moraes for the Bantamweight Championship. Now that TJ Dillashaw had to vacate it, do a failed drug test and a 2-year suspension. Way to go, TJ. So Henry Cejudo is still your flyweight champion, but he's also going to be taking on Marlon Moraes for the Bantamweight Championship. We have Tony Ferguson versus Donald Cerrone, who just beat Al Quinta. And Tony Ferguson, very deserving of a big fight, but his personal life seems to be kind of messed up on the side. I'm assuming everything's better now, but he did have a domestic dispute, and the details were ugly. You could Google that. And you can only hope that he's okay and that his wife's okay, because that was ugly and that didn't sound like a guy that should be fighting right now. Valentina Shevchenko is also defending her women's flyweight title against Jessica Ai. And then on June 22nd, we have Moicano versus the Korean Zombie on ESPN+. So that should be pretty good. Other than that, not much of a card there. Then we have ESPN, a big ESPN fight. Tyron Woodley versus Robbie Lawler 2 on June 29th. That should be a hell of a fight. We have UFC 239, which I'm going to be, of course, on vacation for. It's all right. I think I'll cry while partying in Beirut. We have John Jones taking on Thiago Santos for the light heavyweight championship. And Amanda Nunes versus Holly Holm for the women's bantamweight championship. And Francis Ngannou in a featured heavyweight bout against Junior Dos Santos. Holy freaking doodle squat. And then, of course, we have UFC and ESPN Plus 13 on July 13th. We also have Daniel Cormier coming up against Stipe Miocic. I believe that is on, August 17th. Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier in a rematch for the heavyweight championship. Dana White claims that Brock Lesnar's retired. I think that's code for I don't want to pay Brock Lesnar's money now that we're getting guaranteed money from ESPN and don't need to give people the rightful pay-per-view cuts or whatever. I don't want to say rightful pay-per-view cuts, but essentially how it works now is because ESPN's giving them guaranteed money and taking a cut as well, UFC doesn't really feel the need to give a guy like Conor McGregor or Brock Lesnar a pay-per-view cut. Or if they do, it doesn't mean as much because not as many people are going to be ordering pay-per-views from ESPN+. So while UFC will be taking in more money, fighters will be taking in less money, which is why a guy like Brock Lesnar is probably trying or was trying to negotiate guaranteed money. So, for example, as opposed to getting $10 million and maybe getting, a 5% cut of pay-per-views or something like that, whatever the case may be, he'd want maybe a flat fee of like $15 million or so, which clearly UFC ain't paying. And maybe they won't pay that with Conor McGregor, although I think they should. And I think ESPN will. UFC may say F off, we're just going to take our money, but now that ESPN's actually in real business with UFC, I could see them approaching Lesnar. I could see them approaching McGregor. Maybe more so McGregor because he's actually going to be active if he doesn't end up in prison. So, but some really interesting economics there. And, Nate Diaz, man. Nate Diaz taking on Anthony Showtime Pettis. I believe that's also taking place on this. Also taking place on August 17th. So UFC 241, the early card in Anaheim, California, August 17th looks awesome. Cormier versus Miocic. Poor DC couldn't get that big Brock Lesnar fight. I don't even think he really needs to fight Miocic again. I don't even think Miocic deserves a title shot again, but whatever. Let's do it again. And, Diaz versus Pettis. So action-wise, it looks like a pretty good card. So what's next for Bellator? June 8th, they got MSG. Hopefully, I'll be there in person. Chael Sonnen versus Lyoto Machida. There's also going to be a few other fights there, which let me bring up in a second. But I want to take a couple questions here. What do you see being the next super fight for the UFC? Good question. I think it's probably going to be John Jones and Daniel Cormier, assuming Cormier gets past Stipe Miocic. I think it's going to be not impossible not to book that fight, but close to impossible, especially because ESPN Plus and ESPN in general, Disney, is going to want some big fights on that card. So, Bellator Machida versus Sonnen. That's the main event of that MSG show. We also have Rory McDonald defending his welterweight title against Naaman Gracie in the welterweight Grand Prix semifinals. And Rory McDonald has not looked good his last couple of fights, and I actually could see Gracie winning this one. Darian Caldwell is defending his bantamweight title against Horiguchi. That's going to be an awesome fight. Nice interpromotional fight from Rizin and Bellator. And then we have Dylan Dennis, who's infamous for kind of inciting that Conor McGregor-Habib fight, or post-fight, against Max Humphrey. So, and Heather Hardy, the boxing star, is going to be fighting as well on that card. So, got a jam-packed few weekends of fights with UFC, with boxing, with Deontay Wilder fighting next weekend, with Anthony Joshua fighting a couple weeks later, with Triple G fighting as well a week later. It's a good time to be a combat sports fan. Wow. Well, folks, I'm going to get on out of here, but I want to hear from you. What do you think about this upcoming slate of combat sports fights? What do you think about Rose Namajunas possibly rematching Jessica Andrade? Let me know. Leave a comment below. Tweet us. Facebook us. Do what you got to do. If you enjoyed these videos, please like, share, take care, or this podcast. Feel free to subscribe no matter which way you're listening.